A home. It's something we all need. But for too many, having a safe place to make a home is out of reach. The challenges can seem insurmountable. And yet, each and every day, people are coming together to provide safe, quality, and affordable housing for those in need. Welcome to Let's Talk Housing. I'm your host, Sarah Goldvine. Join us as we listen to and learn from people in British Columbia who are creating strong, inclusive communities where everyone can thrive. Hello and welcome to a very special episode to wrap Season 3 of Let's Talk Housing. We were welcomed to the lands of the Squamish Nation for a conversation with Syexwaliya, a Squamish Nation elder and elected councillor, Donalene Rapada, CEO of Hiemta Squamish Housing Society, and Dave Ward, CEO of Luma Development Management. We discussed the exciting and innovative partnership between the Squamish Nation and Luma Development Management as they work together to build hundreds of new places for Nation members, including for those who have been displaced to return home. For transparency, we recorded this episode in April of 2024. Before we get underway, Syexwaliya will start us off with a welcome.
Kayachtan. In Squamish Nation, that means welcome. On Hawthorne Squalwyn Quisclake, Quichnomi Tanoyap and NCI to Squals to Seats. I'm really glad that you came here today, all of you, my friends that are sharing this conversation. And I welcome you to the ancestral traditional territories of the Squamish Okemeo, the Squamish Nation. And today I welcome you to the Squamish Okemeo Squamish Nation, Aslahan Okemeo, Aslahan Village. And we're going to be talking about our projects that are in Quamalchison Okemeo, as well as Syexwaliya Okemeo in the Squamish Valley, as well as the Orwell project, which is on Chechilquake, our Seymour lands. And so it's a great honor to be able to have this discussion and welcome you to our territories. Syexwaliya Quishaman Sna. Syexwaliya is my ancestral name. Ann Wanik Queen Sna. I'm also known as Ann Wanik. I'm an elder, knowledge carrier, as well as a political elected representative of the Squamish Nation, a general councillor on council, and also one of the appointed spokespersons for Squamish Nation Council. So it's a combination of roles that I'm here today to be able to share in this snachum, this talk that we're having in regards to Lolam housing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the welcome. Maybe we can start just by recognizing everyone who's here on the podcast today. And then I'd like to spend a bit of time just talking a little bit more about the exciting projects we have underway. So Syexwaliya, thank you for the welcome, and thank you for welcoming me and my team to your lands today to record this session. Can you tell us just a little bit more about your experience and why you're so committed to housing and housing for Squamish Nation members?
I grew up on Quamalchison Okemeo, Capilano village of the Squamish Nation. And at that time we were a smaller population of people. And our population has grown significantly, and we have a lot of families that need housing. And at Squamish Nation Council, we've always wanted to be able to have housing for all of our people, from the families to just the elders, and being able to bring everyone home. And it's become a dream that we bring back all of our people in a generation to have them housed within our community villages here in the North Shore as well as in the Squamish Valley. And it's through Hiam Housing that we were able to start moving forward and start getting houses built. First at Capilano, one of them's already fully occupied. Syexwaliya up in Squamish Valley is nearly fully occupied. And soon we'll be moving into the other housing with 95 units. And there's going to be the beginning of another project down in Syexwaliya, Seymour Village, that'll have a lot of family units down there as well as units for students. So it's really something that we dream of being able to bring all our people home and house them.
To be able to bring all your people home. And Donalene, tell us a little bit about him and what the work is that you're doing here.
Donalene Rapada, the CEO for Hiem Housing. I'm a Squamish Nation member. My family is from, my grandpa lived on the Squamish Reserve in Squamish Valley, but really from the Chikai Reserve in Squamish. I've worked for many, many years at the Squamish Nation in the finance department. I'm an accountant, so I was working for the nation for 28 and a half years before moving over to Hiem in 2021. So I'd been with Hiem and moved over to Hiem as a director of finance. And Sarah Silva, the CEO at the time, moved over to our economic development arm company, Enchikai. And then I became the CEO. Well, the work we're doing is, as Anne already said, the nation originally, we were created by Squamish Nation back in 2019, became operational in mid-2020. And the nation gave us 6 sites to develop affordable housing on. And 2 of those sites were currently developed, housing is being constructed. But we got 3 projects under construction and just starting the 4th. So we have from CMHC, Rapid Housing Initiative, we got funded for supportive housing for 55 units on Capilano in West Van. And in the same, under that same funding, we have 27 units in Syexwaliya in Squamish on our Syexwaliya Reserve. And the 95 units we call Syexwaliya, and that's on Capilano Reserve in West Van. And for those projects, for the Rapid Housing Initiative, supportive housing, those target populations are for homeless and homeless at risk. And the 55 units in West Van is more geared towards a low barrier homeless population. And we have 24/7 staffing there. And the 27 units in Squamish is targeted for women and children. And the Syexwaliya, the 95 units, is target populations are elders, youth, and families. And so the RHI project, like I said, the Capilano one is finished. And I think we have about 47 of the 55 units occupied. And in Syexwaliya, believe that's 12 units of the 27 units occupied. And then the 95 units is Syexwaliya is supposed to finish in the summertime. So we plan on starting tenancy in September. And the Seymour Orwell project, we're just getting underway and planning on submitting an application to BC Housing for the Indigenous Housing Fund. And that's looking to be about 204 units.
So hundreds of homes within just a few years. Colleen, can you tell us a little bit about this goal that the nation has to provide housing for all of its members within a generation? Why is that? Tell us more about the importance of that.
It's really important to be able to bring people home because probably about 50% of our people cannot reside on our reserves, as they're called, and I call them villages. And, it's difficult with the way the economy is nowadays for them to find affordable housing. And so that's why these projects are really important for our people. And when you look at the way the units are being built. It's almost like we're taking our longhouses that used to be built flat and along and have multi-generational families in them. They're now being raised up on an end, and the ability there is to have multi-generational families living within one project and being able to have the supports for each other and being able to have people coming together as families again, which is really important because we've been separated and staying in different places. And, you know, in the 95 units that are being built, there'll be the ability for sometimes 3 or 4 generations to all be living in one place. And that's never happened before.
Yeah. I mean, for our listeners who might be listening to this podcast, when I came to your village today, driving here, I drove past some of the most expensive homes in the entire country. And I can only imagine how it is for people to try and afford homes here. What do you think will be different with Chankmok when you're able to create the space for families to actually live on their lands and live together in one community like that?
A lot of unity and being able to reconnect with their family trees. And that's really important to our culture, knowing who we are and where we come from and having that connection to have the family support of each other. And that's been missing because of the distances at times.
Right. Dave, I'd like to bring you in here. We were talking just while we were getting set up about how if we take a look across the country, the work that Squamish is doing in housing is really innovative and groundbreaking. From your perspective and the work that you're doing with LUMA, can you talk just a little bit about your role and also just help talk about the importance of this approach to housing?
Hi, everybody. My Western name is Dave Ward. My traditional name is Four Winds Man, and I'm originally from Driftpile Cree Nation in northern Alberta. I've had the privilege of living here for the last 2 years, and I'm a visitor to this land, and it's such a privilege to be able to work with communities like Squamish Nation and others that continue to share their vast knowledge and traditions, and I'm just honored to be able to bear witness and learn from them. Our role is multifaceted. I think for communities and nations like Squamish who have demonstrate obviously a vision for their community by engaging their members and informing a strategic plan that actually identifies the goal of having 600 homes in a generation. And just from the projects that Donalene was able to share so far, I think we're about 416. And I think part of our role is to also demonstrate to other Indigenous people across the country, land is a critical component to our ability to serve our community members and nation members like Squamish is trying to do here. And as you mentioned, some of the richest homes in the country are across the street from the community. And the way our partners sometimes evaluate land value in communities is a challenge. And part of this work is also not only to provide homes, but to also provide some understanding about how Indigenous communities are impacted by the current colonial practices and interpretations of the value of land in our communities. If anything, that we have a smaller portion of land to work with, and we're serving a larger number of people with, that are also, the purpose is to also try and help our community members reconnect to their culture and their language and their identity. And, a lot of our knowledge keepers reference the importance of that process in order to provide some healing. And so some of the housing projects that Donalene references that are supporting our formerly homeless individuals and people that are struggling with affordability in our surrounding communities, they're able to come home and actually not have to worry as much about that, and to actually within the facilities being able to access that level of support and connection through the staff that are there. So I think there's a couple things as far as LUMA is concerned. Not only is it the privilege that we have to work with a nation that has demonstrated such a vast capacity and vision, but it's also to share with other people and other communities how important that the stability and leadership and a vision of this magnitude is in order for us to go after opportunities and to have funders buy into this process so that we can achieve these types of goals.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, Dave. Such important context. And of course, in your experience, you're working directly with developing housing, right? And there's so many barriers within that system. Can you talk just a little bit, Dave, about what it means to approach housing development from an Indigenous perspective, where you're developing housing that will be lived in by First Nations people on First Nations land? What are the types of barriers that you're surmounting in order to make that happen?
Well, I think what we've experienced is communities that are challenged around understanding a process that is also a little bit foreign to us. You know, when you think about how many Indigenous people are participating in the housing process as far as development across the country, there's not a ton of us doing that in terms of the development process. So I think part of my commitment to playing this role in our community is to also try and create space and awareness to our young people that we need them. We need them to be warriors and to step in this space and start to occupy these roles that we're holding space for them so that they can grow, so that we have experts that start to come along and advance these types of visions to another level. I think when we're focusing on developing this process in an Indigenous way, obviously everything for us starts with the land and understanding and appreciating our relationship with the land and how vital that is to inform our relationship with each other, the people that we're serving and the people that who are in leadership positions that help to influence how we serve that population. And then all of that information, which when you review Squamish's strategic plan or the 600 homes strategy, it also then moves towards how that information informs the building. What kind of buildings do we need? What kind of space? What kind of services? What kind of cultural aspects that represent the community are in that? And then ultimately we tell those three components of the story to our funding partners to identify the money, the resources that are required to make visions like this possible. So those four components, as far as LUMA is concerned, are critical elements to the Indigenous development process. I mean, I'm sure they're common to every other development process, but I think the spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical aspects to how we connect to those pieces of the process are unique, and we all have come from a multitude of different Indigenous views. But in terms of this. I've had the privilege of witnessing Squamish's identity, culture, language through different ceremonies that we've had, the standing poles that are representative, the language that's being spoken and represented on the buildings, the signage. It's all reflective of a journey that we're on. And to me, in a lot of ways, we're just starting this journey. We're just starting to impact the development ecosystem. And we need more of our people to do this type of work and to have the courage that this nation has demonstrated.
Thank you. And Donalene, I'd like to get your thoughts, because as Dave talked about it, there's the building, but it's not just the building, it's the land, it's the culture, it's the community that's created within it. What do you think is, for him, you're operating this housing, you're seeing it now come to life with people living in those homes. What do you think is important to make sure that communities can be successful and that it's not just a building, but it's actually a home?
And I think one of the most important things is that, some of these members have not had any connection with the nation. And some of them haven't, need to reconnect with their families. And so it's giving them the opportunity to do that, but also, is the sense of belonging. So we see that some of these people are coming home and then they're like, okay, great. I don't have to, the 55 units on Capilano for the homeless at risk are like, great, now I don't have to worry about where I'm sleeping tonight. I have that stable. But they're kind of just sitting in their rooms and like, what am I gonna do now? And so they start thinking about themselves, or whether it's treatment that they want to go into, or sometimes, we see them walking around. Okay, I'm gonna walk around and see what's around here. And so it's we've been talking a lot with the nation, like when we're looking to house these, bring our members home, and so it's looking to the nation, what services are they going to provide to the members returning home. And so I think it's just us, the two entities, working better together to be able to provide those services, get our members to understand all the services that our nation provides, because our nation provides a lot of services, and but being able to educate them on all the different services that are provided.
And if I might add, one of the most important things is when you talk about the land, usually it's where we come from, and our ancestral names connect us to different villages. And then where all the different projects are, mainly it's families who historically always resided in those areas who are living there. And then when you look at, as Donalene was talking about the two projects in Capilano, they're right close to our centrally located member services, education, member services, the health department. IS Munmun Child and Family Services are right close by. And then we have the cultural longhouse just right there that they can come down and join in ceremonies if they want to, and be able to also go to the rec center where we have a fitness room set up, as well as probably 2 nights a week there's some kind of community event happening. So it's bringing everyone together in a place, and then we hope to have more accessibility to what's happening in the community and their families. And just also there's the little one school that goes up to, I believe, grade 4 now.
I think so.
And so there's a language nest. So when there's families in the one unit, their kids can be going to the Mother Bear Project here on Eslahan. Then also, before they even get in there at Capilano, there's the language nest. And we're teaching Squamish Nation, Squamish language. And that really connects with how our families relate to each other. And more of our young people, our language was almost extinct. And thanks to a collaboration with Simon Fraser University and language programs that the nation also has for employees and in community, with programs that happen nightly at the rec center and other places in the community, people are beginning to use the language, and we're now up to nearly over 200 speakers of our language. And so by bringing people home, more and more people, because we're not a nation without our land, without our people, without our language, and being able to have somewhere to reside and live. And, it's through the programming that's offered through, especially at the rec center, they do a lot of things for families and like recreation, as well as arts and crafts they call it arts and crafts, but they're the things that we use in ceremony. And then they learn the language there, and then learn to be able to share with each other the songs and dances and learn the history, because with colonization and not being able to live within the community, we've not been able to teach our history of our origins and how we moved through time and became who we are now today. So a lot of this is really important with our housing. And as Donalene shared, the being close to the member services and the health department, things that they couldn't get from help from the nation by living off reserve, they're able to now access because they're at home again. And due to how funding is arranged, we can only service people who live on reserve with government funding. With own source, we have a bit more, discretion in being able to help. So in post-secondary, having units that'll be available for students, because some of our students on what they're allowed for living allowances can't survive. Their whole check just goes to rent. And now through the housing that's going to be provided, they're able to have, as Donalene said, comfort and be able to relax and know that they're taken care of in a good way.
Yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts, Donalene, on that, because then housing, can you share your thoughts on the importance of housing as that enabler for reconnecting folks to their communities and to the nation?
Yeah, well, housing's, housing's been our number one priority for our nation and for our members for many, many years. And to, all of the units that HEAM has been able to create just in the last few years is enormous in respect to how many units the nation has been able to create historically.
Mm-hmm.
So we're well on the path of, and this bold and our council, the bold goal to bring all members home within a generation. Dave mentioned it, where our nation is also, in order to make that happen, we're calling it the 600 Homes Action Plan. So our council wants us to be breaking ground on 600 units before the end of 2025. And so I said, I think the culture and the language and being and our members being able to reconnect with their family, learn about our history, ground themselves, and but also really and Syexwaliya mentioned it a couple times already, but it's going back to the old ways that we know worked many years ago, and that coming together to be able to learn from our elders, and that those oral histories that can be passed down generation to generation, and being able to learn about the culture and getting back to helping one another, looking after one another, I think is going to be bounds. Like, I think that's going to help enormously with each and every person, each and every member that comes home, and being able to, like we said, the squall in our hearts. It's, we're all one, and so being, I said, being able to help one another, I think is going to be one of the best things that we're going to see with creating a community.
When you think about it, and I was young, I used to welcome people to our land. I'd be in Vancouver and people would say, "Can you tell me how to get here?" So I'd tell them and then say, "And I want to welcome you to our traditional territory, because this is all our territory here." And, giving people that pride and knowing who their families are and where they come from, because that's gotten lost and we have to have that reconnection. We call it Chin Chin Stwite, standing and working together to hold each other up and support one another. And that's a philosophy of our old people, and it's a philosophy that is being embedded in the units that are being created to bring people home and have everything they need holistically to be able to have success in life and feel in Chomo and Squalwin, one heart and one mind.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Dave, I'd like you to just to help us ground some of this in the context more broadly across the country. I mean, we've heard this just a beautiful conversation so far. And I know you're very well aware of other housing projects across British Columbia, as well as spread across the country in what is known as Canada. Can you tell us just a little bit about people who want to build housing across the country? What lessons do you think that people can take from the work of HEAM and Squamish Nation?
Well, I think the key starting point is to have a relationship like this nation has demonstrated with their members, to engage them, to give them voice, and to have that voice be collectively evaluated, and ultimately to have that voice inform what the strategy is moving forward. And that what that's afforded all of us here is the opportunity to focus on what our goals are. Sometimes if you don't have that research and that data and the engagement, then communities can struggle with buy-in. And I think one of the things that we've witnessed as a development firm who's worked with multiple communities across Western Canada is that things move a lot quicker when you have that data to back you up, and you have the leaderships and support moving things forward. And so the ability to pursue opportunities that, I'd be remiss to not mention how innovative BC Housing has been around creating different programs like the Rental Protection Fund that has afforded an opportunity to pursue housing to add to the other funding streams that groups like CMHC has informed or provided support with. So I think there's key elements to that. I think part of it is knowing who you are and having leadership that is confident in who they are as a community, and then to have that be the driving force about how your plan is informed. And that have leadership like Donalene's leadership and her team have demonstrated over and over again about their courage to take the steps and push us forward to pursue things that, other groups might be a little apprehensive about taking those steps. And we wouldn't be where we are without her leadership and without the leadership of the HEAM team. We wouldn't be able to achieve the numbers that we have to date. And I think those are critical elements to making this type of thing happen. I mean, oftentimes, we work with communities and we do one project, and, the project's there, and we go through it's almost a bit of a traditional process for development. But when you have a strategy like HEAM does, like Squamish does, it allows you to move to the next one and multitask. And, right now we're dealing with 3 active projects, and we have a couple in the hopper, and every day there's a multitude of things that are coming up, but our team, and I'd be remiss without mentioning one of our critical leaders and partners, Simon Davies, who's basically helped us steer this in a great direction with all of the vast experience that Terra Social Purpose Housing has had, and we all benefit from that leadership and support. So I think it's also about tapping into your allies and trusting them and building those healthy relationships and bringing our community's teachings to the table, with that being the guide and principle, and bringing all of these experts that really want communities to support achieving these types of goals. The other part is to also recognize across the board just how impacted Indigenous people are in the homeless numbers, in the affordability structure. The challenges that our communities face are huge, and if we have a community like this that is able to achieve these types of goals in this type of time frame, we can replicate it and we can learn from it. And this is a multi-generational approach. So we're just kind of getting into the development game. We're starting to dissect what's so colonized about this, and why does it have to remain that way, and why can't we do it better? And I think the other part of this is us learning those types of details and making recommendations on how we can push the envelope, and so we can all make a difference, the type of difference that's happening in Squamish right now.
Donalene, you are the one who's leading this 600 homes with by 2025, that's coming around the corner. What would your advice be to other leaders, and particularly to other First Nations that might be looking to get involved in the housing space and start up housing agencies like HEAM?
Well, I think we're still in the new company grounding stage and working hard to set all the ground rules, and but really what I see about our 600 Homes Action Plan is that when I've seen our nation doing really well just in the last couple years is so we have three entities, right? We have our nation, we have HEAM, and we have our economic development arm, Enchikai, and it's the three entities working together, not working in silos. So that's what we have with our 600 Homes Action Plan, is three entities working together and planning that work. And so, and I feel like, HEAM not all on its own trying to figure things out, but having, the nation has a lot of resources, is a lot bigger than HEAM, but being able to lean on and look for the expertise within the three entities to help us achieve this goal. And so we not only have the 600 Homes Action Plan, so we're looking at doing some workshops with council now, and then in May, looking for council to approve that 600 Homes Action Plan. But there's a lot of other initiatives going on that are overlapping with the 600 Homes Action Plan, and we have another initiative, the land use strategies that Enchikai is working on, and the nation's long-term capital plan, and really putting a focus on our elders, and we're calling that the elders projects, whether it's elders village, some housing for our elders, assisted living for our elders, long-term care. So it's all those initiatives and the three entities working on them together all at once, and set all of that coming together to be able to go to council to get that approved in May.
I think the most important thing, and Dave said it as well as Donalene, is communication and engagement, and being able to talk to our people, and whether it's in person or through surveys or through forums that happen through lives that happen on Facebook, and people can ask questions on the chat on it and get the feedback that says, this is what we want, this is what we need, and being able to take all of that data and be able to create the plans that have been mentioned, and being able to show that we've been listening.
And Syexwaliya, what do you think things will look like? I mean, when the generation, it's homes for everyone within a generation, what do you think it will look like for those members who are able to start their lives and live their lives on their homelands? What do you think things will look like then?
I think that we'll have a lot more pride in who we are and where we come from. We'll have, maybe overcome the challenges that were created with residential schools and colonization, and have this tall, strong, proud people who are becoming educated not only in the academic and economic way, but also culturally, and have so much success into the future that will be a force to be reckoned with.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for spending the time having this conversation today, and for welcoming me here. And thank you as well to Dave for joining us for the conversation. Let's talk again soon.
To learn more about BC Housing, including how to apply for subsidized housing in British Columbia, visit bchousing.org. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a rating. This will help others find Let's Talk Housing and join the conversation. You can subscribe to Let's Talk Housing on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.